right, everybody, the Irish Hammer back with you. We're going to look at the AFC South next, and we'll just start in Houston. They won the division the last year, actually won it the last 2 years. So, a little bit of a streak there for the Texans, although the 23, they had to win the very last game of the season to salt away the division title. And then last year, they sort of limped into the playoffs with some injury issues and let's just face it, the rest of the division sucked. So they're looking to stay on top. Vegas has their over under win total this season at 9.5. Slight boost to the under that total, which is interesting because they've consistently won 10 games since D'Amico Ryans has been at the helm. Um, from a ranking standpoint, kind of a Jekyll and Hyde deal there. Defense is phenomenal. Came in the top five again last year in total team defense. The offense, however, the bottom third, which I know may come as a surprise to some folks that hear all the talk about how great CJ Stroud is and how high powered this offense is. But had a lot of issues with the offensive line last year. They struggled with some injuries in the receiving core. So, got some work to do on the offensive side of the ball. And while they didn't make any splash free agent acquisitions, they did trade for Christian Kirk and they brought in Nick Chubb, who unfortunately is not the Nick Chubb that we have come to grow and love in Cleveland. Clearly, after several knee reconstructions and torn ACLs and all kinds of just unfortunate stuff that's happened to Nick Chubb since even college. He's just not the same back. And let's be honest, this is Joe Mixon's backfield anyway, so Chubb's just there for depth. They did, however, address some of those needs in the draft, and the Texans had probably one of the better drafts of anybody in the league. Certainly, probably the best draft in this division. They had no first round pick. They traded that out, picked up some additional second round picks, used one of those on Jaden Higgins, wide receiver out of Iowa State. Also in the second round, they brought in Ariante Ursary, who is an offensive lineman, tackle. Then in the third round, Jalen Noel, also wide receiver from Iowa State. They picked up a couple USC Trojans in Jalen Smith, a cornerback, and then Woody Marks, running back. So added a lot of offensive pieces, got an offensive lineman. Later on, they did pick up Jalen Reed as a safety out of Penn State. They picked up Graham Mertz as a quarterback out of that school down there in Gainesville. And then, interesting pick is Luke Lachey, tight end from Iowa in the 7th round. So they got a lot of tight ends in Houston. So we'll have to wait and see how Lachey fits into that picture. But overall, a very solid draft. They added some depth to the defense with Jalen Smith, of course, and then Keontae Hamilton, who's a defensive tackle out of Rutgers. But this defense is solid. So for the most part, anybody they bring in on defense is just going to add depth to an already pretty talented group. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, probably two of, if not the best duo pass rushers in the NFL. Derek Stingley, top cornerback. So defensively, no worries about this team whatsoever. I always say if you've got a first-year head coach or a new quarterback, a new system, a rookie quarterback, or a new offensive coordinator, those are the things that automatically I'm going to raise eyebrows and question. Well, we have that in Houston. We have a brand new offensive coordinator. When I say brand new, I mean he's never been an offensive coordinator. Nick Caley, who was passing game coordinator for the Rams and also an offensive assistant for the Patriots. So he's got good bloodline in coaching. But again, if you've never put on the headset and called the plays, it's a little different animal. So that's going to be something to kind of watch. And to some degree, I think CJ Stroud had a little bit of a sophomore slump. Injuries always are unpredictable. Nobody can ever know what that's going to look like, how that's going to affect the team. But if he stays healthy, the new pieces on offense gel. Joe Mixon's not showing any sign of slowing down, so I'm pretty confident in him. I just don't know, between a new OC and a pretty tough schedule, I think the Texans maybe struggle to hit that 10-win mark. So I don't love it, but I'm going to take under 9.5 wins for the Texans this year. So now we'll move on to Indianapolis. They came in with an 8-9 record last season, and their win total this year 7.5, and it's basically a coin flip. You're getting -110 on either side of that. So I guess it just depends on how you feel about what Anthony Richardson can do in Indianapolis. Well, the problem with that is it may not be Anthony Richardson that you have to bet on. Daniel Jones joined the conversation this offseason. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. What I'm hearing initially is that Daniel Jones is outplaying Anthony Richardson and is in line to be the starter. We'll see what happens once OTAs are over and we get into the actual training camp. But these two guys are quite the pair. Couple cool little facts. Anthony Richardson is only the fourth quarterback since the merger of the AFL and NFL back in 1970 to lead the league in yards per completion and be dead damn last in completion percentage. He averaged 14.4 yards per completion, but only completed 47.5% of his passes. And if you're keeping score at home, that is the worst since Tim Tebow in the 2011 season at 46.5%. Must be something about these Florida quarterbacks, huh? Well, not to be outdone, Daniel Jones finished the 2024 season in New York having less than 10 touchdown passes in his first 10 games. And that's the fourth time he's done it in the 5 seasons that he was with the Giants. I can sit here and tell you all about the draft picks and tell you all about the free agents and tell you all about this, that, and the other with the Colts. I'm not even going to waste my time and everybody else's time. Colt fan, if you're watching, sorry. This team is cooked. It's one of the more dire quarterback situations in the NFL. I don't think Shane Steichen is going to be able to work enough magic to make this thing be anywhere close to decent, respectable. So you could have all the Jonathan Taylor and all the Josh Downs in the world. It's not going to make any difference. 7.5 wins. This is free money. No way. Under. Not happening. All right, we'll move on down to Jacksonville. Jacksonville finished up with 4 wins last year. I didn't even realize it was that bad. 4-13. Their win total this year sitting at 7.5. Slight juice to the over, -115, -105 if you don't think the Jags are going to win 8 games. And this team's gone through some changes. I've got a new head coach in Liam Cohen. Comes over from Tampa Bay as their offensive coordinator. And quite frankly, I don't think they've got any place to go but up. So 25th in total offense last year, 31st in total defense last year. So collectively, last year's season was pretty much a wash. So Jacksonville going to hit that reset button and try to get back on track to be a little bit more reflective of what they were a couple years ago with Trevor Lawrence's rookie year. Keeping him healthy, obviously, is going to be the key to that. Schedule-wise, they've got one of the easier schedules in the NFL. They've got the 9th easiest schedule. I mean, playing in the AFC South doesn't hurt, so they should have an opportunity to build on some wins and put themselves in a position to hit that 8-win mark to hit this number. They did address their offensive line situation, bringing in Patrick McCarry from Baltimore and Robert Hainsey from Tampa Bay, which is, of course, Liam Cohen's old team. So some familiarity there with the system. He'll just need to develop that chemistry, of course, with Trevor Lawrence. Um, Draft wise, they picked up some kid named Travis Hunter. Should be a pretty good fit with Brian Thomas, who was a major breakout player last year for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and certainly poised to have a big year this season. In fact, he's one of my top sleeper picks in uh, fantasy football, if you can consider him a sleeper. I'm talking like top 5 level sleeper. So we'll see. Um, they also brought in Diami Brown and of course Travis Etienne. So a lot of young bucks on this offense. Trevor Lawrence hasn't quite lived up to our expectation, but he's also struggled with some coaching issues, as we all know. So hopefully Liam Cohen can kind of be the rock and settle that, so they can start to put together a legitimate franchise and maybe go on a run. So one of the things, of course, that I don't like when we're coming into looking at these win totals is, a new head coach. Well, we have that. I don't like first time head coaches. Well, we have that. We got a quarterback that's historically had some injury issues. We've got a high profile player in Travis Hunter that wants to play both sides of the ball. And we don't know what that's going to look like yet. From a snap standpoint, offense, defense, who knows? They also have a new general manager in Jacksonville. So everything in the world points to this should be an underplay. Well, not today. I'm going to take the Jaguars over 7.5 wins. And I'm going to take the Jaguars at plus 300 to win the AFC South. I know it may sound crazy, but I think this team has been poised to explode and take over this division for a couple seasons. And I think Liam Cohen may finally be that piece that's able to help Trevor Lawrence put it all together. They can get some luck with injuries. They figure out what balance they need for Travis Hunter to be impactful on both sides of the ball. I know it's a lot of ifs, but I'm throwing the dice. I'm hammering over 7.5, and I'm going to drop a little bit of pizza money on that plus 300 for the Jaguars to win the division. All right, and finally, we're going to end up in Tennessee, Nashville, the Titans. Whew. Boy, that was rough last year, y'all. 3-14. I mean, the Titans sucked out loud. This year, they're looking at 5.5 for their win total, and it's got some juice on that over at minus 140. Of course, the largest reason behind that is they finally have a quarterback that can throw the football downfield, can read a defense, and doesn't put mayonnaise in his coffee. Of course, I'm talking about Cam Ward. And while we're on the subject, I need to issue an apology. I didn't have faith that Cam Ward was the right pick for this team or any team as the number one overall. I got on my soapbox the whole offseason leading up to the draft and said the Titans need to trade the pick. 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 Well, then I met Cam Ward. My opinion is 100,000% changed. He absolutely is the right guy to bring in to do a reset on this franchise and get them back to respectable would be, I think, the minimum expectation. I think they've got some pieces now that they're going to be able to build on with Ward at the helm. And it's crazy. This team was one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. They were ranked second in total defense in the National Football League. The problem, of course, was the offense. 26th. Terrible. Horrible. Couldn't score. But there's hope, Titans fan. There's hope. They bring Xavier Woods in, safety from the Panthers, and also Dan Moore and Kevin Zeitler from Detroit. Also picked up Cody Barton, linebacker out of Denver in the offseason. And then draft-wise, they had a pretty strong draft and addressed some areas of need. Picked up Olu Oladeo from UCLA, the edge rusher, in the second round. They picked up Kevin Winston, out of Penn State in the third, who a lot of people had regarded as a first-round draft pick, but suffered a knee injury mid-season and obviously hurt his draft stock. And then, interestingly, they signed Cam Ward's buddy, Xavier Restrepo, from Miami, the wide receiver that everybody got to know and love as the season played out. And they also drafted, I'm going to hope I don't screw this up, Alec Iomanner, a wide receiver from Stanford in the fourth round. Now, this kid's pretty special. He's from Canada. He grew up a hockey player, ended up switching up to football. And I don't know if many of you saw the game from a couple years ago, Stanford versus Colorado, but this is the kid that blistered Travis Hunter for 294 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, kid can ball. So they have some pieces in place for Cam Ward that hopefully they can see some return on their first overall pick investment early, get the kids some confidence. This team could make some noise, especially in this division. So I feel like the Titans have done enough to help the offense at least get back to middle of the road. Cam Ward certainly has the potential to be a breakout player and really elevate this team. With between their draft picks, their free agent signings, boosting the offensive line, addressing some needs in the secondary and the linebacking core. I feel like this team may be much better than they were last year. I certainly think doubling their win total is within reach. So 5.5, I'm going to take over for the Tennessee Titans. So just to recap, we've got the Houston Texans over under 9.5 wins, and I am going to take the under. The Indianapolis Colts sitting at 7.5 wins, also going to take the under. The Jacksonville Jaguars coming in at 7.5. I am taking over, and division winner of the AFC South. And the Tennessee Titans over 5.5 wins this season. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Feel free to give me a follow over on X. I follow everyone back. I don't care what your team affiliation is. Just love chatting and enjoying football with everyone. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. See all the videos posted there, plus some bonus stuff that's not on the podcast sites. And, of course, just about anywhere you get your podcasts. Thanks again. Till next time.